Hello friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the possibility of a global recession. So let us first understand what is the current affair. So the current affair is that in the global economies, the economies around the world including India, the growth slowdown is very evident. It means that the GDP growth rate in most of the economies around the world, especially the most developed economies, have come down. So this has posed a question whether the global recession is near or is there a possibility for a global recession in the near future. So this is the current affair. Now if we specifically look into Indian economy, we have seen that in Indian economy also there is a growth slowdown, and this is evident in most of the sectors in Indian economy, including the automobile sector, the housing sector. So everywhere a slowdown is very evident, and this has affected almost all the industries, almost all the sectors in Indian economy. So likewise, around the world, if we analyze Germany, US, China, all the major economies, they are undergoing a growth slowdown, which we will discuss in detail in this lecture. So this is the current affair, and based on this, we will be discussing whether a global recession is possible in the near future or not. So this is the point of discussion today. So let us start. Let us first understand what is the term global recession, or how we can define a global recession. What is that situation? So to understand that, let us first understand the term recession. Before going into global recession, we must understand what is a recession. So a recession happens when the output declines for 2 successive quarters. Now, if we look at a financial year in India, a financial year is divided into 4 quarters, which is Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. So if there is a decline in the output for 2 successive quarters, it is called a recession. But global recession is something that is different from that of ordinary recession. So ordinary recession happens in a economy, in a single economy. So if the output for 2 consecutive quarters is low, or if there is a decline in India, then it is a recession in India. It is not a global recession. So it is just for a country or for a particular economy. Now it is different from that of global recession. So this is the concept of recession, and you must understand that recession is associated with the decline in output. So now let us see what is a global recession. Now the global recession, for that the international institutions like the IMF, World Bank, etc. has given a broader definition, and according to them, a global recession is much more than a weakness in the economic growth rate. Now, a decline in the output is reflected in the economic growth rate or the GDP rate. So, it impacts the economic growth rate or the rate of output. But a global recession is a much wider concept, and it does not only include a decline in the growth rate, but it also within its ambit includes unemployment, a lack of demand, etc., a fall in employment or a fall in the demand, etc. So all these factors together contribute towards global recession. So we must understand there is a decline in output, which is the general recession, plus unemployment, plus less demand or a decline in the aggregate demand. All of these clubbed together refers to global recession. And there has also been a threshold set for this. The long-term global growth average is 3.5%. So this is the long-term average. And if the growth average goes below 2.5 threshold or below 2.5%, it is considered as a global recession. So the threshold is kept as 2.5%, whereas the long-term growth average is 3.5%. So if the growth rate goes below this 2.5 threshold, it is considered as a global recession. Now let us come to the current global growth scenario. Now we are talking about a global recession. So we must understand it from the global angle, not just from India's context. So let us come to some developed countries or some of the leading countries in the world. So first let us come to Germany. In case of Germany, recent data has shown that Germany has a growth slowdown, or the GDP, the gross domestic product in Germany, had contracted by 0.1% in the quarter 2. So quarter 2 is from April to June. So in the quarter 2, there has been a decline in the GDP rate. Now, Germany is the fourth biggest economy in the world. Now, let us see US and China. There is an ongoing trade war between US and China, the trade tensions between US and China. And this has also caused decline in the growth rate not only in US and China's economy but all other economies around the world. So this is also another factor to be considered. And third factor is the Brexit, with which there has been uncertainties regarding global trade. So this has also resulted in slowdown in the growth rate around the world. And if we take the particular case of US, there has been a growth slowdown, and the growth percentage is just 2.1% in quarter 2, whereas in quarter 1 it was around 3.2%. So almost by 1.1% there is a decline in growth in the United States in quarter 2 compared to quarter 1. Now, if we take the case of China, China's growth is also decelerating for a long period now, and another factor that contributes towards lesser growth in China is unemployment. This is coupled with unemployment. So, a decline in output plus unemployment rates are increasing in China, and the unemployment rate in Chinese cities is now the highest recorded level. So, this is a possible sign of a recession. And now if we look at Japan's economy, the Japanese economy is also moving towards a recession. So if we observe all around the world in the global economy, many countries, the leading countries, are undergoing a growth slowdown, which is a possible cause and indication of a recession in the near future. Now let us see what is the impact on the US. So with this growth slowdown, what is the impact on US economy? Now we have seen that the growth or the economic growth rate in around the world is declining, and US economy has got its own consequences, impact due to this. This is because the US bonds or the sovereign bonds of the US government is considered as one of the safest investment option. So when the world economies are undergoing a recession or a decline in growth rate, the investors will find it easy to invest in US bonds. They will be interested or attracted towards the US bonds. So the bonds demand will go up. So whenever the demand of a particular commodity goes up, what will happen? And the supply is less, what will happen? The price will fall. The price will increase. So here in case of US bonds, the demand is high and the supply is limited. So what happens? The price will increase. The bond price will increase. And when we discussed about basics of bonds, we have discussed that the price and the yield of the bond are indirectly proportional. That means when the price of bond increases, yield decreases, and when price of bond decreases, the yield will increase. Now what is meant by the yield? Yield is the return or the interest rate. So yield is definitely the return. Suppose for a particular investment there is more demand, then definitely the returns will come down. So price will increase and returns will come down. So now with the global recession or with signals of global recession, there will be more demand for the US bonds. So with more demand and limited supply, the price of the US bonds will go up. So with higher prices, the yield will come down. So the yield will come down. Therefore, the US economy will be impacted. Now let us see why there is a need for caution. This is because recently, the researchers at the Morgan Stanley, which is a leading investment bank, had warned regarding a recession, a global recession in the near future. And they claimed that if the China plus US, the China-US trade war continues for another 4 to 6 months, there is every chance the global economic growth rate will fall, and this will even go below 2.8%. When we discussed about recession, we said that the threshold is set at 2.5%. So there is every possibility the global growth rate can come down to 2.8%, which is very close to 2.5%. So at any point of time, the global economy can undergo a recession. So if the trade war continues in another 3 quarters, that is in another 6 months, the global economy will undergo a recession, and this will indicate that there is a fall in the economic growth around the world. So India would also be impacted. So when a recession is hitting the global economy, India is also a part of it, and trade and related macroeconomic indicators in India will also be impacted, and there will be a fall in economic growth. So finally it will lead to a recession. And remember here that recession is not just a fall in the output. So it is not just a fall in output, but it is accompanied by unemployment, and it is also accompanied by other factors like a fall in the aggregate demand, etc. Now in case of India, India is a demand driven economy or a consumption led economy. So aggregate demand falls means India's economy will also be impacted. Now again, the unemployment rate will increase. So this will also have negative consequences on Indian economy and its demographic dividend. Now output will decrease, and this will impact the overall GDP of the economy. So this is the reason why the global economy should be cautious about it. Now, what could be the immediate trigger? There are three factors that can trigger a recession, a global recession. The first one is the US-China trade war. We know that the US-China trade war has impacted almost all the economies around the world. It's not that US and China are the only countries that are affected due to this trade war. It has got impact on almost all countries, including India. There are gains for India as well as challenges. So, US had recently declared China as a currency manipulator. Why this term currency manipulator was used? This is because China consciously or intentionally has devalued China's currency. It means that purposefully China or China's central bank has brought down the value of China's currency. And we know that when a currency undergoes devaluation or depreciation, the exporters gain. So devaluation of China's currency is good for the exporters in China. So the rate of exports will go up. So US is criticizing China that they have manipulated their currency in a wrong sense in order to increase the rate of exports from China. So this is an indication that the trade war will continue. And remember, if the trade war continues for another 3 to 4 months, there is every chance of a global recession. So this can be one of the triggering facts. Now, second one is a weak capital investment around the world. This is because the global capital expenditure cycle has weakened. Now, with lesser capital investment, there will be lesser production, lesser output. So, this will also again bring down the rate of economic growth. So, with lesser investment, there is lesser scope for production, lesser scope for more output. So, this will, on one side, this will bring down the output, and also on the second side it will increase the rate of unemployment. In order to produce lesser commodities, lesser labor is required. So unemployment rate will go up, and there will be a decline or fall in the output, which will have direct consequences on a country's GDP or on a country's economic growth rate. Now, third factor is reduced demand all over the world. This is because the consumption around the world has come down. This can be due to many factors. First factor can be unemployment. Second one can be lesser purchasing power, lesser standard of living, etc. So, because of a weak economy itself, the demand or the consumption in an economy will come down. And this will have negative consequences, because a weak demand means that the supply in the economy will come down. The output therefore will be lesser, and this will indicate a lesser economic growth rate in an economy. So, these are the immediate factors that can trigger a global recession around the world. Now, if we talk about global recession and its consequences, the volume and the composition of the trade will change. The volume of trade will come down, and the composition of trade or the trading patterns will change. Secondly, there will be global trade uncertainties. Again, there will be lower investment, and there also will be decline in the demand. Now, if we talk about India, how India will be impacted due to this recession? First of all, India's job market is already suffering. So, a recession can add on to the unemployment rate in India. And remember, India has a huge demographic dividend. And this demographic dividend needs to be invested in jobs in different sectors. So, unemployment would be the biggest issue for India. Now, second one would be trade. especially exports. The exports from India would be affected. Third one is consumption, and as I said, India is a consumption driven economy. Further reduction in the consumption will have bad consequences on Indian economy. Fourth one is the already existing domestic bottlenecks like lack of infrastructure, electricity, roads. All these are already posing problems, and a global recession can add on to all of these problems. So the option left out with India is to boost its exports and also to make investments and increase the government spending or government expenditure to resolve this crisis. You can find the PDF of this lecture on our website www.studyiq.com. You can also follow my Facebook page for more video updates. You can write to me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com for any of your queries and clarifications. Thank you.